everybody. You guys, guess what? All that stands between you and some cocktails is just a quick taping of the Elle Duncan show, but I promise you it's gonna be wildly entertaining, super fun, and then we're gonna go have cocktails and apps. Are we ready for that? I mean, I think you can do better. Are you ready for that? Do you need to like shake it out? Do you need to shake it out? I know it's a long day and the conversations have been amazing and we're gonna end on a really bright, fun note. Speaking of which, a callback from earlier, I have an update on my outfit. Do you remember how I said this shirt? So in order to distract from how short my skirt shorts are, I spilled chicken on my tie. So that way you can just focus on the spot on my tie instead of my really short outfit. Okay, great. So anybody that may or may not watch the Elle Duncan show knows that, and was here last year. Was anybody here last year? All right. So do you remember we had a man here, Gary Streisky. We gave Gary the day off. So joining me to co-host the Elle Duncan show today before we bring our guests out is, like, when I tell you, I don't even know how to describe what Ari Chambers does, except to tell you nobody is more clued in, plugged in to all of women's sports than Ari Chambers. She is a revolutionary, she is incredible, and she has such a close, Jordan Chiles saw her out back, screamed and ran to her. I was feeling some kind of way. I was like, maybe you should have done the interview with her. Ari's gonna come and host the show with us, so you guys make some noise for my ESPN colleague, superstar Ari Chambers. Oh, okay.
You know I'm a millennial. You're trying to write me off as Gen Z, but no, we're out here. Look at the little montages. Not running.
Cute montage. Okay. Literally, she's got, like, don't lose your phone. She's got, seriously, everybody's Rolodex. Hi, Ari.
Hi, Bookie Bear.
Hi, well, welcome to the Elle Duncan show presented by AT&T. We're gonna get to a couple of quick stories before we bring out an amazing panelist to end the day. Who here is a WNBA fan?
It should be everybody in the building.
Tomorrow, preseason kicks off, and right away, we get Parike, which is Paige Beckers and Arike Gumbawale, versus the Aces in a preseason matchup. How excited are you to see Paige Beckers debut? Ooh, sort of.
Listen, Paige Beckers has been running the girls and the boys and everybody else. And I just can't wait to see what it looks like in the league because we've been waiting so long for her to be healthy. We've been waiting so long for her to fulfill her prophecy. Now it's time.
Yes.
Now it's time. Arike can finally just shoot the ball like she's been wanting to do for decades. But, you know, I can't wait for her to just step into her role as the point guard of that team. It's a new, fresh Dallas team. Kurt has been very, very adamant in saying, hey, like, we're trying to build something here, and I think he's done it.
I know. I think so as well. And I'm also really just excited for the people that saw Paige in college and know, like, her story is one of perseverance. Like, when people talk about sort of the hype train that follows Caitlin Clark, and it's well-deserved and well-earned, but, like, Paige Beckers was that original person, still the first and only freshman to win National Player of the Year, and had so much of her momentum stalled because of injuries. So to see her have that sort of storybook ending, I understand that South Carolina fans don't like us to talk about the national championship, but a bright spot, how about yesterday? Dawn frickin' Staley in the state of South Carolina, in a capital that a handful of years ago had a Confederate flag waving in front of it. There is now a statue of Dawn Staley after yesterday, and that deserves. And so I have to ask you, Ari Chambers, if you could have a statue of yourself, what would you, have you seen Dawn's? She's cutting down the net from her first championship, right? It was amazing, really great statue. They've been working on it for years. What would your statue be of you doing?
It would probably be me upside down. Those who don't know, my sport is
I was like, please explain.
Elle, only you would take it there, Elle.
I'd be upside down.
But my sport is cheerleading, so I'd probably be upside down. There would probably be a small dog right next to me in true Ari form. If you didn't see my puppy running around here, he is here. But I love dogs and I love being upside down. Let's get an inversion going.
Yeah, we love that.
But like, I want to talk about the statue though real quickly. In true Elle Duncan form, I have my notes written.
Yeah.
I took a note out of your notebook.
Look at you being so professional.
You know, I just try to show, you know, whenever we can. But Dawn deserves the world. And I know that there's been a lot of controversy around her legacy, which is confusing as to why that was even presented. But she said that she didn't want to get a statue because she wanted Asia to have it, because Asia is a symbol of what's possible when passion meets preparedness. But I would say Dawn Staley is a direct reflection of that. She has shown like how much you can do with just faith in establishing a culture. So I'm so proud of her.
Yes.
Way to be the walking example for all of us. It gives me chills just thinking about it.
Yeah, she really is. She's an amazing woman. She's a dream merchant, as she says to herself. Did you want to know what my statue would be of me doing?
You know, I mean, is it you in a skirt and chicken juice?
I was gonna say, well, sort of. It would be me eating lemon pepper wings.
See, it's true. You can't take her out
I'm so
there,
ratchet.
y'all.
I know. I'm very ratchet.
That's why we're friends.
That's also my favorite food.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. All right. Before we wrap up this portion and bring out our great panel, we have a guarantee presented by AT&T. I will pose this question. First, I'm going to poll the room. There's either going to be a yes or a no. I want you to, in unison, yell out yes or no to this question at the same time. All right? The guarantee that the sophomore class will steal, in the W, will steal more storylines than anybody else. 1, 2, 3. No. No? Okay. Why? Who do you think is going to steal all the storylines? Paige Beckers is going to steal the storylines. All right. I mean, the sophomores have stories aplenty. We, of course, have Caitlin Clark. Now we've got Angel Reese teaming back up with Haley Van Lith. We've got Cameron Brink
Who's
coming
finally back. She's healthy.
She's
She's been running
finally back
around.
and healthy. But then, of course, you do have this phenomenal freshman class that's coming in as well. We've spent a lot of time talking about the youth. I feel like somewhere someone's going, I'm the best basketball player on the planet, though, and my name is Asia Wilson.
Period.
So there's that, right? I'm sure we have Liberty fans in the building, right? We've got the Liberty.
She's like, yeah, I'm a fan.
Snapping. They've largely preserved their team from a championship team ago. Then, of course, you've got the Minnesota Lynx, who were right there. And
With a chip, Elle.
with an absolute chip on their shoulder. So do you agree that it's a guarantee that the sophomores are going to steal all of the storylines in the W this year?
I came in here thinking that it's a guarantee because, you know, you have Angel Big Money Reese, you have Caitlin Clark, who just is a walking headline. You have Cameron Brink, who's back healthy, Rakia, who's the prettiest person on the planet. But now I'm thinking, no, there's so many stories to be told, and I challenge everybody out there to tell all the stories, okay? All the storytellers out there, that's my cheap plug of saying, hey, there's more than 3 names, there's more than 10 names, tell the stories of these wonderful athletes.
Yes, there is so many names. I'm actually like on how soon is Dominique Malonga gonna dunk watch, because
Oh, it's first game. It's preseason.
right away. Well, no, she's got to save it.
No,
Dominique,
no,
don't
do it every game.
No, don't do it in the
every game, Elle.
preseason. No, I want her to do it when the stage is the biggest. Like, you don't wait till the regular season and just pull out that dunk. That's what I'm trying to
She
say.
said no oversaturation here.
Yeah, exactly. All right, are we ready to bring out our guests? Yes. All right. So our first guest has covered women's sports at Sports Illustrated, SB Nation. She is currently on-air talent at Meadowlark Media. If you watch the Dan Le Batard show, she is the woman. Please welcome to the stage and wish her a super happy birthday, Jessica Smetana.
I didn't even know it was your birthday.
It's her birthday. Did you choose this walk-up song?
I did.
Okay, I love that. Were you a Chapel Roan fan?
Yeah, I feel like I was on the spot. I wanted to pick a show tune, and I was like, that would be inappropriate, but Les Mis also could have worked there, maybe.
Yeah, I think it works. I think it's great. And in true, because she's like a true ally form, she brought all of us cookies, not y'all, but us cookies for her birthday. Sorry, I probably shouldn't have shared that part because she didn't have enough for everybody. All right, our next 2 guests have an incredible new podcast. I say new, it's been around for a bit, but it is now a top 20 ranked sports show on Apple Podcasts. They have been in media for a long time, and we are so excited for this pivot. It's the host of the Sports Gossip Show. Y'all make some noise for Madeline Hill and Charlotte Wilder. Oh, wow, you went Brittany.
Wow.
Well, you guys had to share a walk-up song. Who chose this one?
Oh, I did.
Charlotte chose
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, what song would get the best reaction when
Yeah.
you hear the like dun dun dun? And so
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a
it did
perfect
pretty
walkout
well.
song.
Yeah, thank you everybody.
Yeah, we
I
love
mean,
it.
it's perfectly positioned because we have the mics. I know
Yeah.
it's a
Yes.
Madonna
Right, yes.
mic, but like a Britney mic too.
Yeah, we were joking in the back that it depends on what generation you are. Like, I call this a Madonna mic because I'm 42, as mentioned before, and they're like, it's a Britney
It's
mic.
a Britney Spears
Britney.
mic. Sorry.
I was like, that's cool.
Sorry.
You guys are young. I love that. So, like, I'm really interested because you all have done legacy media, traditional media, and like, what went into the process of sort of pivoting to these more non-traditional roles with what you're currently doing right now? And I'll start with you, Jess.
Yeah, so I just kind of finished a 4-year stint, like you said, with the Le Batard show, where I was going into the studio every single day and getting up, getting my hair and makeup done every morning. And it's a lot of fun working for a show that's established, that's been around for a long time. But at the same time, right now, like I'm at the point where I really sort of want to have my own show at some point and do my own thing. And so that's sort of what they're starting and what they started doing with the Sports Gossip Show. And it feels like, the creative freedom is there now, and there's these different monetization models that exist that maybe weren't around 10 years ago. And so it's a really interesting time right now in media where I think there's maybe slightly more options than just working for your traditional network or at a traditional sports media job. And I think that that's really exciting, especially when you're talking about something like women's sports, where there haven't always been those options available. Because as you guys know, like a lot of the time you're fighting for covering the sport that you want to cover. And when you can do that for yourself, it's just, there's so many more options available.
If only there was a room that could maybe help fund a new sports show for you, Jess. And what about you ladies? Because I think, I remember when they came to me about doing, this podcast a couple of years ago, and I was like, yeah, that's exactly what the market needs, another podcast. But yours is so incredibly unique. And I know, Madeline, like you had a social, you're a social media strategist.
Yeah.
You didn't have a traditional sports background. Charlotte, you had a very traditional sports background. That's how we met. What went into sort of the thought process of looking in the market and deciding that this is what the market needed, which is a sports gossip show?
Yeah, I can start.
Yeah.
So it came from my Substack. I launched a Substack in 2020 called Impersonal Foul. The premise was if Bravo and ESPN had a baby, this is my newsletter, because I'm a lifelong sports fan, but I felt like there wasn't a space for coverage about off-the-field stories that wasn't trashy, but wasn't like super intellectual. And I was like, where's the kind of middle ground here?
I feel so seen.
Right? And so I was like, wait, I'll just make this. I come from like a writing background, a social media marketing background. I worked in entertainment for a decade. And so I started it. I didn't really take it that seriously. And then Taylor Swift started dating Travis Kelce, as we all know. And then it felt like the world kind of woke up to off-the-field stories, and that there were so many sports fans out there who were interested in sports but weren't necessarily in the nitty-gritty, didn't know stat lines. I still don't really know what that is, but Charlotte does. And then Charlotte and I met because Charlotte wrote a blurb for my newsletter about NBA Finals gossip, right?
Yeah, it was one of those, Madeline reached out and she was like, hey, would you write about your favorite NBA gossip from the 2024 season? And I was like, I have never been more honored to be asked something in my life. I was like, yes, and it was when James Harden skipped Joel Embiid's wedding. And so I wrote that, and there was just like, it was a very professional back and forth and like a very easy process. And we were like, I think we should hop on the phone.
Yeah.
We talked on the phone. Madeline was in LA, I was in New York. And after 2.5 hours, Madeline was like, I'm thinking of doing a podcast. Do you know anyone who would host it? And I was like, yes, hello. She was like, do you have time? And I was like, not currently, but we will make it. And it's just been really, really validating to see that there is such a space for this, because I think there are so many podcasts out there, but there really wasn't something that was accessible for everybody, no matter what kind of fan you are. Mm-hmm. And we're very careful to say, when we're talking about, say, Bill Belichick, off the top of my head, we'll say former Patriots coach.
Why, what's he up to?
Oh, yeah, it's nothing.
Nothing. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
He's having
What's going on with
week.
him?
Yeah, nothing's happening.
But yeah, and I had pitched, I think in like 2017, the idea of a show to a couple execs that was like sports for people who don't watch sports. And I was told, they were all guys, and I was told no one's going to listen to that. And so I think it's been pretty cool to just see it, that people are going to listen to that.
Yeah.
Now, I see the room having different generations, respectfully, but you both come from different backgrounds. So what is the give and take with allowing the new wave media to blend with the traditional media, and how are you able to manage that between the two of you all? And I would love for you to talk about that too, like the give and take of having to adapt with remaining the same traditional journalist.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't come from the traditional sports world, and in a lot of ways, I think that was an advantage because I didn't have like all of this baggage, I think, that can come from being a woman in sports. So I've heard.
But you don't.
I've heard.
What do you mean?
But I had baggage working in entertainment, so,
Right,
different type of baggage. But I think it allowed us to kind of come at it and be able to take more risks. I think because I didn't come from this world of sports. I was fascinated by sports and was a sports fan, but I think it allowed us to take more risks early on with it and just dive right into it and not overthink things.
Yeah, and I think that my background, having done so many shows, some with Jess,
Yes.
which real ones know, having done so many of those and having the traditional training of how do you produce a show, how do you make it interesting, how do you hone your voice, and research and all of that. We sort of came together in this perfect way of taking risks, but also journalistically still having that integrity and not being TMZ.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. Charlotte and I both overlapped at Sports Illustrated for a time, and it was at a really interesting time where the company was going through this existential crisis as it was up for sale. And there were a lot of, it's sort of like there's a dark cloud hanging over your head every day at work because we didn't know what was going to happen. But we were both hired there to just sort of make videos, make a show, and have fun making sports content. But there was this real tension between us and a lot of the quote unquote old guard who wanted everything to be more of a traditional journalistic storytelling methods and that sort of thing. So that tension really existed for us. And as this sort of quote unquote new media generation evolves, I think we're getting more into combining the journalism with the entertainment and having the sort of integrity, like you said, and the sort of guidelines to not just completely make stuff up or to defame people.
I mean, just start a rumor.
Or to, right, it's really important to have that. And I think that that's still something that people coming up through the industry need to have as sort of their North Star. However, as we know, you're much more incentivized in this industry to have fun, to laugh, to make people laugh, and to be able to tell those sorts of stories that really engage people. And that's a lot easier, I think, with a sense of humor sometimes. So at least in the last 4 years that I've worked for Meadowlark and the Le Batard Show, our North Star there certainly is humor and making people laugh, but I've tried to stay true to the sort of semi-journalistic integrity that I learned coming up through college and through working at places like Sports Illustrated. I think, it's important to learn those lessons and to understand where the line is for different people because it is changing, but at the end of the day, there's a certain level of professionalism that you have to take care in when you're telling other people's stories, and that's really important.
And one thing, if I could just add, I think that people really respond well to that. I think listeners, they want to be entertained, but they also want to feel safe, and they want to know that what they're hearing is true, and you want to feel like you have a sense of, I can trust these people. So I think it's actually really good for business, too, actually.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to build trust. We're seeing that at the highest levels of government, Sorry.
Yeah, what are they up to?
What's going on there?
Not everybody cares about the truth. I am interested, though, in sort of embracing the non-traditional role. Have you guys had a moment on your respective shows where you did something, a bit, or you tried something, and right away you're like, oh shit, I'm gonna get canceled for that. And it actually was received better than you thought.
So every single episode.
Yeah.
I'm can we say this? And then
we do.
And we publish it, and I panic, and I say to my husband, who's here, oh my God, did I say, was this wrong? Is it? And he's like, you do this every time, and then it's fine.
It's fine.
So I think honestly though, not to keep talking about Bill Belichick, but I think when we started
It is dominating everything.
We have talked about him. For those who don't know, he is a 73-year-old football coach dating a 24-year-old who appears to be maybe running his life and/or the football program. And I think when we first started talking about this, there was an element where I could tell other people in the media were sort of it felt sort of how I used to feel if I would write a silly story about a mascot and then walk into an NFL press box and all these people would look at me like I had 5 heads. That was sort of the feeling that I had of people, it's taking the silly stuff seriously. And I think it just shows you that there is an appetite for that. And there's a way you can do it without making it something silly.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing a bit on the Le Batard show for the last 3 years where I pretend I'm Jimbo Fisher and I'm lusting after Mrs. Met. So, which at first I was like, this is really inappropriate. And then I was like, wait, she has a baseball for a head. I think it's fine. I think so. But it does make me feel uncomfortable.
You're gonna piss off the baseball for a head community.
But it's hilarious because I look through your social media. I think it's actually the funniest thing ever. Like, your presence just carries throughout the show. I think that they would not be at all what they are without you. But like, personal branding, translating that to online to get them to fall in love with you. How do you do it?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. And like, as platforms change, it becomes even harder, right? Like, 10 years ago, Twitter was everything. Brands wanted to buy ads on Twitter. Obviously, now Twitter is called X, and more brands than ever are pulling out of it and do not want to advertise on that platform. So then, you know, do you try to make videos for TikTok? Do you try to like program your content to Instagram? And for me, like I probably could even be better at it, I would say, but my sort of like philosophy is just not to pay too much attention to the platform itself, but is just to like post the things that I think are funny. And like, if the followers tend to be more gravitating towards my stuff on one platform, I'll focus more on that. But it can change in a minute. Like TikTok was banned for like 12 hours in January, and then it came back.
What panic we all had. Maybe just me, but I
didn't give a shit.
A lot of panic.
But yeah, I think like my answer is more so like I don't pay attention as much to the platform. I pay more attention to the work, and I hope that the audience will just find me if the work is good.
Yeah.
I think, I come from a social background. I ran some of the largest Instagram accounts in a past life. And so we're always thinking about what clips are going to work on social, how do we create content that works on certain platforms, and create little micro communities across our social platforms on YouTube. We had like a text number for a while, and just always kind of trying different things and knowing that like some people may just find us on TikTok, like that is their first entry point. So how do we create like a feed where they're going and an entry point where they can get the gist, understand what we talk about, who we are, our personalities, while also creating content that's entertaining and will get them to want to go like watch an episode on YouTube or watch it on Spotify. And so I think that's been a nice asset for us to have. I always joke, Charlotte makes fun of me, but I'm like the social media manager for Sports Gossip Show.
Yeah,
And Charlotte's the boomer.
Well, thank you. Jess is laughing too hard at that. Yeah, Madeline will come to me and she'll be like, there's this TikTok trend, we should do it. And she'll explain it to me and I'll be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And she'll be like, just say what I tell you to say. And I say it and then the thing blows up and I'm like, this is crazy.
It's wild what people like.
You're saying you're Bill Belichick and she's
I'm Jordan Hudson.
Do not do that. Do not do that.
Yeah.
Y'all,
yes,
I don't know if y'all follow Elle Duncan.
You're from
on
Boston.
anything,
Okay.
but Elle is the funniest person ever, and I want to ask you, like, how are you able to just, first of all, you're so credible as a journalist in general, a great host, one of the best that I've ever witnessed, but you're also like an amazing TikToker. I knew that I would love Elle's social media when she did the Britney Spears toxic with the knives. Hilarious. How do you stay up on the trends? Is it Andrea? Because it's not.
I know. I'm not gonna lie. When I imitate, because I had this like dress, I had this outfit on at the national championship last year, and it looked a little bit like the Toxic video from Britney Spears, and someone was like, "Oh, that looks like the shirt," and she notably had just done one of her sexy dances with knives, and so I pulled out. That might be one of those moments where I was like, I'm gonna get canceled because like, clearly we know that there are some challenges there for Britney, and I was like, maybe not pulling out plastic knives and doing this dance is the right thing to do. But I mean, like, thank you for everything that you said. I really don't. I'm not very good at social media. I luckily do have like youngsters in my life who will be like, same thing. They'll be like, just like drop it low and say, kick, and then like I'll like put it together, and then all of a sudden it just does like 1 million views. I'm like, what was that? Like, it's so weird what you all like. Then you do something like really heartfelt, or I don't know, you try to talk about a charity and there's like 3 likes on it. It's like, that's cool. But to that point, I'm really interested because I think like part of the reason that we're seeing such an explosion in women's sports is, yes, because they're incredibly talented, but also because of the intentionality, right? And platforming and money and all of those things. And I'll be really candid. When the Elle Duncan show started out, it was just sort of like, we wanted to kind of have a space where I couldn't get off these jokes on SportsCenter, where we could talk about everything from like, Bill Belichick to real things and whatever was happening. And it was just supposed to be me and Gary just like sort of shooting the shit and doing our thing. And through time, as you discover with podcasts, our fan base started to reveal that it was much more centered around like women's hoops, and people were responding more. And I think that a lot of times the fan base tells you what your brand is and like what they're gravitating to. But with that being said, it can be difficult, right? Because these things are seasonal. And there are times where I'm like, my producer will be like, all right, let's start with women's hoops. And I'm like, there are no women's hoops going on right now. So I'm really interested how you all navigate sort of respecting and honoring the fan base and what they come there for you, like for, what they expect from you, while also like recognizing that there are other things and other interests that maybe you want to talk about and how you sort of approach that. In particular, for someone like you, Jess, who is in a completely male-dominated space, and you sort of have to carry the torch for women's sports. But I imagine there are times when you're like I don't got nothing, and,
Right.
and if that's okay.
Or it's something that's like so niche that it would take me 45 minutes just to get to the point where I want to actually say the thing I want to say. I mean,
Right.
It's hard. And I think a lot of people listen to the Le Batard show because it's a men's sports show, frankly. They cover men's sports, and it's men mostly covering men's sports. They're not coming to it to talk about, to hear me talk about the WNBA. And so I think that that's something that's really, really challenging, because I know there's like so many topics that audience would be interested in if they just sort of like opened up their minds to it, and if I could explain it in a way that made it interesting. And that's something that like I try to do, and it's not always easy and doesn't always work, but it's certainly like you don't want them to just turn it off, right? You don't want them to just tune out as soon as they hear you talk about Asia Wilson or Dawn Staley or whatever it is. But at the same time, it's like, you guys don't realize that this is like the exact same thing as that other thing. It's just women, and you don't have to like, I wish I didn't have to sort of explain all of the lore behind it, like I wouldn't have to if we're talking about LeBron or JJ Redick or whatever. So I think it's definitely a challenge, and something that I still don't really have an answer for how to fix or how to make perfect. But I definitely feel the tension of that when I'm working there.
I think we're in an interesting space where we have an advantage, being that we can really rely on social media, so it might not be the WNBA season, but, Dejanay Carrington just posted this great Instagram, and we can talk about that as its own, because we're covering, the sports gossip is really just another word for like, who are these athletes, right? Like knowing them as people in addition to what they're doing on the court. And I think that just being able to, whether we're talking about men's sports or women's sports, we talk about all of it, being able to speak about all of it in a way that is not specifically for a male audience, or not a male executive's idea of what a male audience wants to hear, has been incredibly freeing for me. And I think too, something funny when it comes to women's sports and men's sports, there's often a lot more gossip about men's sports because men are much messier than women.
Hell yes.
So like some of the most interesting, like I'm like, I can't believe this guy posted that. Like, is he serious? And like women athletes just don't post that. And so we have to dig a little deeper to
We
be
have
like,
shame.
Yeah, exactly. We're like Paige
Maybe
was
too
wearing a
much.
cowboy hat this week, and we will talk about that, and that is great. And then you've got all this other mess everywhere else.
I think, too, because we're doing it ourselves, as we like to say on the Sports Gossip Show, we have a lot of autonomy where, because we don't have anyone else telling us what we can and can't say, we can kind of just go with our intuition on what's the most interesting story that week. And so it gives us a lot of freedom, I think, too, to be able to dig into stories that maybe we would have more roadblocks or obstacles to do if we had people telling us, what we can and can't cover.
Like, we kind of touched on this before, but you kept mentioning freedom. But social media, when I think of social media, I'm like, that's a lot of pressure. So how do you find the power versus the pressure when you put yourself out there so front-facing? And just like the pressure to just hold your own in this men's show. I cannot relate. I do not work with men. I don't know what that's like, but I'm sure it's difficult.
I'm sure it's difficult.
I'm sure
Ari's like, I've never met a man
don't know
before.
men.
I don't know anything about them.
What is a man?
I'm like, you are blessed.
Yeah.
Just kidding, ESPN.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a lot of pressure, right? There's a lot more pressure when you're like the only person of a group that you have to somehow represent that entire group. And like, if I do something wrong, it's like, this is why there shouldn't be any women working in sports, right? And it's like, and also, like, Charlotte briefly worked with me at this company, too. And so people constantly are comparing Charlotte and I to one another. I'm like, you never compare me to Billy or Chris. Why is that? Like, I have the same job as them, not her.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's tons of pressure. And I think that, just at some respects, it's like, well, this is what I signed up for, so I have to do it. And this is the job. And, like, I can try to make it fun and try to make it work for me, or I can just crumble and like be really sad. And sometimes that happens too, but I think like the work itself is what's fun, and like I feel very lucky to work in sports because I've just wanted to do this my whole life. I never even considered another career, so I sort of just try to think about like how lucky I am that my job involves just getting to watch sports all the time, and when I'm having a difficult, pressure-filled moment and being challenged on something that to me is like, I shouldn't be getting challenged on, I'm just like, okay, I guess like the alternative maybe would be worse if I had to like work in like finance or something, because I don't know anything about math.
With all due respect.
Both of my parents are math people, and I'm like,
Same. I still count on my fingers, so finance was never going to be for me. By the way, I love when, the thing that men do. So a man, Ari, is...
I'm like, do tell, Elle.
Is when they like, it's not even just the comparison when they're only allowed to like one woman. So they're like, well, I don't like Elle, I prefer Andrea. I'm like, well, you can like us both. It's like, Elle's all right, but I think Malika. I'm like, why? Like, again, you don't compare us to men. I am interested in you guys, though, because, again, your podcast is certainly not in its infancy stages, but I was told when I started my show, it takes like 18 months to start to really sort of figure things out, so it's relatively new in those standards. How do you sort of judge and measure success? Because there are metrics, right? There's data, there's fan engagement, there's downloads. Do you measure it that way, or do you look at it more as measured in cultural impact, personal growth? How do you look at that?
I think from the social perspective, obviously we pay attention to the numbers, and like we've gained, 6,000 or 7,000 followers in the past 3 days because of Jordan Hudson and Bill Belichick on TikTok.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Bill. We can talk about that more offline.
Wait, can I share something with sports gossip really quick? Some gossip that I heard.
Oh my God.
This is breaking news.
Is this exclusive?
I'm like, you need to whisper?
Well, so don't tell anyone.
we're on camera.
Cut the stream off. So I was told by a former person who played, well, he's still a person.
Who is now a submarine.
Go on.
The former person is crazy.
He's no longer a person. I was told by someone that Bill's old girlfriend, Linda, was also very, very involved, also at practices, also on the plane all the time, but that maybe it didn't get this level of attention because she was deemed more age appropriate, but that he in general really likes in his significant other someone who is heavily involved in his day-to-day life. Now, this person, of course, was not, like wearing thigh-high boots and like fur coats at UNC practices in the spring, but that like this is kind of his MO, so that it's not particularly surprising to some of his former players that this person, Jordan, is so involved in his life, because that's kind of this is gonna sound mean because he's in his 70s, but he's a caretaker.
Interesting.
Yeah, right. No, I think I'm from Boston. I've covered the Patriots for a long time, and I met Linda at various things that, like Gronk's beach party, which, I mean.
That must have been an intellectual, just incredibly intellectual.
Talk about men.
Chess. Yeah, so men.
Yeah, no, but I think that they're definitely, part of why this story is so huge right now is because she is behaving in very unprofessional ways publicly.
Yes.
And when in my experience, if you want to be the story, but you're supposed to be the PR person, you're going to become the story, which is sort of what's happening. So I think that it could be more normal, or could be more of what he is used to, but instead it isn't. It simply isn't. But I think when you're talking about measuring success, I think for us, actually, a story like this that we covered from the beginning, because we were like, this is weird, and other people might not realize quite how weird it was. It's been very cool to see a community grow of like, they'll tag us in something when they see, something about Jordan Hudson. And we have other bits too, I swear. Like we do talk about other stuff. But I think for us, it's a measure of how true our voices stayed, and like the engagement with communities online is, we look at the numbers, and like when the numbers are good, that's great. And I won't pretend that that's not something that you care about. But I also think that it's this idea that, sports for so long, I've always just thought that it's like socially acceptable gossip for men. And so to be able to sort of reclaim the way we talk about it as women, the fact that that's resonated, and that we get comments from people being like, whoa, I can talk to my dad about sports now because nobody explained it this way before, is very validating and a huge measure personally for what feels like success.
Women in sports is one thing, and women who talk about women in sports is another. And I remember when I founded my platform, it was a back and forth with me and my former employer about like, are we gonna be women who talk about all sports or women who talk about women's sports? And I was really dead on the push. But I love what y'all do. Like, I love the range of topics that you can cover. But as women's sports gets more successful, more mainstream, what is the gauge that you have of how much you talk about women's sports, or is it just something that just moves you into what you want to cover?
I think for us, it's if there's tension. We always say, like, we cover a story if there's some sort of tension there. And if there's a WNBA story that there's tension, we'll cover it to the same level we'll cover an NBA story. Mm-hmm. So I feel like for us, it comes down to if there's tension in the story, and it doesn't really matter.
But like not forcing it.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Okay.
Like there's some sort of conflict in the story that we're like, that's interesting, that little piece, let's grab onto that. So.
But what it does mean is staying up on women's sports.
Exactly.
So that, like there's this tennis thing happening and what's happening, instead of having a blind spot. So we're not talking about the gossip because we don't know what it is. It's like if there's a juicy story in women's sports, we have to know it, so we have to keep up with it so that we can talk about it.
I do try to force it. When one of my coworkers will do like a top 5 list of like greatest basketball players or whatever, I'll butt in and be like, Sue, Diana, like I'll just start naming women's, and they'll be like so flustered. They're like, oh yeah, I forgot her. Right, I definitely was thinking like, I'm like, I'll just
forcefully enter.
Yeah. Like,
there it is.
I made you feel awkward. That's how I feel every day.
Yeah, exactly. We're about to bring Christine Williamson up because
this
she's
is therapy, right?
She's 100%. This is a safe space and a trust tree. We're about to bring Christine Williamson up because she's going to do some rapid fire with us. But I want to do a couple of like fun ones with you before she comes up. All right. You three are on a women's rec league basketball team. What is the name of your team?
The funny girls.
The gossip
Wait,
gal?
with the fingers too, Charlotte?
Yeah, and you have to say it with the finger guns.
I feel like something about hair color, because we look like a hair dye box, like yes, like just the row. It's like
the
brunette,
Pantene
redhead,
Pros.
blonde. Yeah, the Pantene Pros. That's good.
Oh, I love that. That's
good.
great. All right. What is a sports take, Ari, I'm going to include you in this one too, that you fully believe, but could get you booed potentially off of this stage?
Oh, jeez.
Elle.
I know.
Okay.
Spicy.
You're putting us on the spot.
I'm not even a spicy type of person.
Do you have one?
I'm literally thinking.
I have one that's not really that spicy, but I do not, well, I'm not going to say that. Sorry. It was too spicy. Somebody else think of one.
Okay, I have one. I'm bringing up Jordan Hudson again. I'm sorry, I cannot. I kind of feel like Jordan Hudson has a lot in common with Tom Brady. And I think that's maybe why Bill Belichick likes her. Because it's like she's an underdog. Tom Brady wasn't drafted in the first round. She's an underdog. She wants to be like proven right. I don't know. I think there's some overlap there.
Okay, I thought of one.
He's trying to prove
I like
a point.
that. Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe a little more his type than Tom Brady.
Yes,
which
right.
I'm sick of Gino Auriemma. I'm sorry. I'm just going to say it. See, I knew I would get booed for that. I'm a Notre Dame
Jess
fan.
understood the assignment.
Jess went to Notre Dame. Right.
I understood the assignment. She did go to Notre Dame. Why?
Hey, sports rivalries are very important for the growth of women's sports, okay? We need to be able to have a, push and pull. We need to be able to have rivalries.
I love that. You gonna bail, Charlotte? Ari, you guys gonna bail?
I mean, mine was like a little spicy. I was like, I think that people need to know when to retire from their sport a little bit quicker.
Yes.
But like that was never mind.
Oh, I thought it was the same one.
No, it was not talking about Gino. You're not going to get me caught up like that. But you're not going to do that so they can clip this. No, not on the Elle Duncan show. Not today. But I was talking about athletes. But here you are talking about coach who just won a ring. But hey,
Yeah,
he
well.
did go to Notre Dame, like Elle said.
And I was very upset. I'll say it. Sports make me angry. More often than they make me happy.
I'll give you one that will only get me booed in my own house, and I know it falls right into that trope of like here's a little like inside secret for you. I won't name who they are, but there's a whole group of incredibly brilliant women who are so good, amazing journalists, whip smart, know their shit, can talk around any man, circles about sports, but we all get together and just talk about who's cute. And we do. We don't want y'all to know that because you won't take us seriously, but I'll say this. Yeah, I've become a big Notre Dame fan because of Marcus Freeman.
Yes.
And I might have had a semi-embarrassing moment where recently he was getting mic'd up to join College Game Day, but I didn't know he had ears in.
Oh, no.
And he literally heard me say to my co-host, man, that man should be my hall pass. Yeah. Yeah. I was like, and he did it because he's so classy. He didn't say anything at the time, and then just like told a mutual friend that he heard me. I was like, so I'm embarrassed, and I'm never going to South Bend again. So that's gonna happen.
As a media professional, I have no comment on Marcus Freeman.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that man's not a bad-looking man. All right, let's bring Christine Williamson, who's been holding down our incredible live stream all day. Oh, okay. Boom, bop, boom, bop, boom, bop, bam.
She's scurrying.
She takes a while, guys, because her heels are 37 inches tall.
They're so tall.
Get over, you see her.
No, they're bringing me a chair. I just feel like running around the whole stage.
We're comfy.
Hey guys, how are you doing?
Oh, you brought it in.
We're cozy. What's happening? Hi. How are we? I also, so when Marcus Freeman got his job at Notre Dame, because I'm single, and I literally, I went on Google and I was like, Marcus Freeman married, and unfortunately, yes. So,
Yeah.
With a lot of kids.
6
Yeah.
children.
Yeah.
17
Well, I mean,
children.
have you seen him? No, I was like, if I was his wife, I would also have 7 children. It's fine. I'm gonna stop. I'll stop.
Okay, so I have some rapid fire questions to ask the girlies just so that we can get to know them a little bit more like we already have this whole entire conversation. At first, I was gonna ask you guys about your favorite hot goss, but I feel like we found out a lot about you guys already. So let's start with what 3 words would your closest friends use to describe you, Elle Duncan?
Oh, crazy, fun, loyal.
Okay, Ari.
Is this a compound word? It's really not. Coffee addict, a little unstable.
And also doesn't follow directions.
Nailed it. Finish that. Next step.
A little unstable. That's actually already all of them. Okay.
Definitely weird. Funny, silly.
Those are cute.
Right,
Okay.
Charlotte? Yeah, totally.
I think tall, obviously tall, for being 5'12", as I like to say. Funny and lame. I'm lame. I'm not very.
You're not lame.
No, I mean,
Well,
a
I'm
little
also lame. Okay, so lame, funny, and constantly worried about everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also
Anxious.
doesn't follow.
Oh, anxious?
Also didn't follow.
None of us
Anxious
listen.
is better.
Anxious is
better.
everybody's
Yes,
anxious.
yes,
Anxious is
yeah,
boring.
exactly.
I'm
Yeah.
just really, my brain's doing a lot all the time.
I like that for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I know we've all met a lot of people in our careers. Elle, why are you looking nervous? I don't know. Elle's like, what is
My
she
body
doing?
language is giving
By the
what
way,
is coming.
these are questions that your producer gave me, so you
Fair.
should be fine.
I know.
Okay, who is your favorite athlete or most exciting, entertaining athlete that you've met?
Ooh, okay, start back over here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, God. I literally couldn't name a single athlete at this moment.
I've met none.
I think from a pure entertainment standpoint, because this name is in my head because I just said it, is Gronk, because the beach parties, not only, I didn't just go to one beach party.
Oh,
I went to Gronk's second beach party, and I was not partying. I was there as like a reporter, which is the lamest thing you can ever do.
That's actually hilarious.
And I got COVID at Gronk's beach party. So that's just an excuse to say that.
That tracks.
Thanks.
That tracks.
For me, the first person that came to mind this is so unbelievably random, but I went to a rocket launch in California with Chris Bosh and his wife. And and the group shows up, and it's like normal height people. And then I was like, that's a really tall man. Who's that man? I get close, and it's Chris Bosh and his wife, and he's just sitting on the bus with us, like crunched up in the seat, like on the tour bus, to go to this random rocket launch.
Can you explain more about the rocket launch?
Yes.
So it was like NASA was like inviting media adjacent people to come, like, oh, see a rocket go in the air, as they do.
It wasn't Katy Perry.
No, it was not. No. This was like an OG NASA.
Okay, got it. The real thing.
This was like scientific.
Back when the government did
exploration.
What? They're astronauts.
Yeah.
What?
No, I think it was a rocket being launched to Mars with a rover. Yes, and Chris Bosh was there, and he was a big science nerd and was taking a bunch of photos. It was amazing.
Awesome.
That's so cute.
That's fine.
Jess?
This might be cheating because she also works in media, but Kate Fagan is the best person I've ever met. She's hilarious and so smart and so funny.
That's a good one.
This might be recency bias, but Jordan, I love Jordan Childs. She's so fun, and exactly what she's presenting to you is exactly how she is in real life.
Yeah.
Mine's a bit of a cop-out. It was through a sporting event. It was at NBA All-Star, and I got to meet Beyonce. I know.
She's trying to flex.
And you guys, when you think in your head, I was like, oh my God, it's Beyonce. She's walking right towards me. We were both on the floor, and I was like, I'm gonna say something to her, don't be a fangirl, don't say something stupid, be normal, be normal, be normal. And then she comes over because she was talking to someone that I was standing with, and I just was like, I just think you're so amazing and wonderful and great and amazing. I was like, you fucking idiot. But yes, Beyonce.
Oh my God.
Can I change mine?
What? Yeah.
Megan Rapinoe.
Oh, I love her so much.
Way better answer.
Oh, Megan
actually
Rapinoe
obsessed
is
with
the
her.
best.
Thank you.
Megan. Can I tell a story about Peyton Manning?
Yeah.
Because I used to, I'm answering the question myself. So I used to work for the Broncos when Super Bowl 50, when they won Super Bowl 50. I was an intern. Hello. I got a ring, yes.
Congrats.
And I obviously, I worked for the Broncos, so I'm in the locker room. It's the first time that I'm in the locker room post-practice, and Peyton walks, literally is beelining to me with a towel on, and I was like, what's happening? Let me get out of his way. And he's like, hey, I just want to tell you that you're doing an amazing job, everything that you do for us. I'm like, I just got here, you don't know what I do. But then he was like, what's your name again? I said, I'm Christine. And he goes, Peyton. I know, dude. And then me and Elle were at the full court press premiere last week, and I walked up to him because he was there. It's Omaha Productions. And I was like, do you remember me? He's like, yeah. I'm like, no, you don't. He was like, yes, you do. You're killing it. And I still don't know if he really does. I was like, bro, you don't remember me. I was an intern. So that's my favorite one.
We love that.
Okay.
I think we have time for one more.
Okay, this is a good one.
Okay.
So is it acceptable on an airplane to take your shoes off? What about your socks?
Okay.
Oh.
There's one exception. Well, definitely not without socks. That's disgusting. But I flew to Australia. That is a 23-hour flight.
Compression
12
socks?
hours to
I hope
Dubai. I did have on my compression socks.
Oh, yeah.
They were very sexy.
My girl.
And you can take your shoes off on flights that are that long, but I watched a woman, you guys, as I live and breathe. She was barefoot, and she went into the bathroom.
No.
She went into the plane bathroom where men miss, and so men, men pee standing up, and a lot of times they miss, and she walked in there barefoot. So long flights, yes, never barefoot.
Have you ever you've taken your shoes off? Everybody's taken.
Okay.
On a 23-hour flight? Yes.
Yeah.
I don't mind this number right here where you just
With no socks?
Okay, here. As long as it doesn't touch the ground, I'm okay with it.
Somebody once put their feet next to. I was sitting
We saw. It was
on the
disgusting.
window seat,
And they put them on the
somebody
thing?
just
Threw
came
it.
over here.
It was disgusting.
You got to tell the flight attendant when something like that happens.
No, press the call button.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Okay, should I ask another question? Or are we good?
Do you guys want to answer?
They said no.
I agree with you 100%. Long flights,
Socks
yes.
are fine.
I'm fine with socks.
Yeah.
What if
an
their feet, but
exposed
their feet
toe? I
could
don't need to see.
You can still have stinky feet in socks.
I'm
Yeah.
fine with me taking off my shoes.
You're like,
But no one
I
else.
do my own horn.
My feet don't smell.
All right, one more, and then we are headed off to get cocktails.
What is your hidden talent / party trick? Because we need you to do it upstairs when we go to cocktails.
If I get drunk enough, I will do a standing tuck anywhere.
Oh, hell yes. Get the shots lined up.
It's literally like it's not dangerous. It's like I literally love to drunkenly tumble. It's so fun.
I was going to say like karaoke.
Yeah.
Sneaky good Janis Joplin impression.
True. I've heard it.
Charlotte's heard it.
Yeah.
The only thing I can think of, I don't really have, I wish I had like a magic trick or something I could do, but I do not. But I can Irish dance.
Oh.
I am redhead
I was
after all.
going to do that so bad.
Yeah, it was kind of a lame dance.
I was going to say, but does it have to be to
it wasn't
Irish
as cool
dance
as ballet.
music? 'Cause that's not really a party
Yeah,
vibe.
so I can do a little Irish jig.
Are you a Notre Dame fan now or not?
I know. I told you I was a Marcus
this is my
Freeman
moment.
fan.
Everybody's looking at me. I don't know. I can recite the first 11 lines of the Aeneid in Latin.
What? Oh, good.
Yeah. Really fun at parties.
We can't wait to hear it.
And that's why your word is lame.
Yeah.
Lame.
Yeah.
Lame.
I can spell the second longest word in the world.
What is it?
What is it?
Pneumono ultramicroscopic silicovolcanoconiosis.
How did you find?
I've
out
never
about
heard that word.
What is it?
Exactly. It's
Can
when
you
you
say it
get
again?
sand in your lungs and your lungs burn. You're welcome. You can Google it. Yeah.
Wow.
Pneumono ultramicroscopic silicovolcanoconiosis.
And you can spell
You can
it?
spell it?
Yeah. It's
I
actually
just don't know
quite
how we
easy.
got
It's pretty
here.
phonetic.
Oh.
Now, I'll do it up at the party, you guys. Good God. How many times do I have to tell you I'm ready for a cocktail?
No one's going to talk to me. No. At the party.
They're like, these two girls with a gossip podcast are like, so lame. Irish dance and reciting in Latin.
No,
really
thank
cool.
you.
Okay.
No, it's great. We love you.
Listen, I want to thank Christine Williamson for just being her. Christine's party trick is being 100% the most interesting, fun, exciting. I've never met anyone quite like this woman in my life.
That's
She
so much
brings me
pressure.
so much joy. It is impossible not to smile around this woman. And I want to thank you ladies as well, like for coming, for doing this, for sharing. I hope that the women in this room will support as well, right? Because they're trying to do something different. They're trying to stand out and be differentiators in this space, be disruptors. And we, as the women in this room with power and cachet, can really throw our support behind them, not just by listening and subscribing, which is great as well, but if you have the ability by supporting through money, marketing dollars, and all of those things as well, because we need more women like this in the space. So let's make them that sort of exemplary. Let's make them that standard bearer so that the next generation of young women have them to look up to. So we do that by supporting them. And thank you so much for coming and sharing the stage with us. And we look forward to seeing how much more sports gossip shows and seeing your new show that will be brought to us by fill in the blank of your company.
Wow, thanks.
And Ari, as always, thank you for being you and thank you for sharing the space with me. So looking forward to the W season and seeing you continue to grow and expand and seeing, just how
The music
I was
got
like-
started.
I was like, are they
"Get on
playing
the
me off?"
stage." That's what it sounded like.
You're really playing it. Sounds like the rap
They are.
music. And continuing to just be a person in this space, like you have been the original. When nobody else, when it wasn't trendy, before everyone thought that this was a movement, when they thought it was just a moment, like you saw it. You had the vision. And I hope that you are enjoying the fruits of your very hard labor because it is so well earned and deserved. You've earned the respect and the right to be everywhere. You are an absolute star. So thank you for sharing
Thank you.
and shining that light and using your platform to shine that light on all of these young women. You're the absolute best, Ari. Hey, thanks for watching the Elle Duncan Show presented by AT&T. We'll holla at you next week.